Hi, boys and girls. So today we are going to continue working with our prompt on nonfiction to narrative. Today is the day that you're going to be drafting. So for all the other days, we've kind of been building up to this moment of me modeling more for you of how to break down the nonfiction and narrative by pulling out vocabulary words, by pulling out the setting, the story elements to be able to make that organizer. So we went over all of that. And now we are going to take all of that and you're going to take what we've done together so far and you're going to be drafting on your own today. You have, like you'll see on the apply slide, in a little bit after you watch this video, of course, you'll see that you have two choices for today. You'll be able to either draft using the organizer and using the ideas that I have given you and that we've worked on together because of your Flipgrid input so far, or you will be able to draft your own story with your own almost like alteration of the story that but it still has to do with the same prompt. So ultimately we got to make sure that we are always following the same prompt. So the prompt is you are taking a vacation in the Caribbean with your family, write an adventure using the sources provided. So you need to make sure that whatever you're drafting, whether it be drafting the story using the organizer we've done together or drafting a story based off of your own organizer and your own ideas. Either way, it doesn't matter. You still need to be writing about taking a vacation in the Caribbean with your family, writing an adventure using these sources. So the nonfiction sources about the diving safety tips and the Caribbean Sea. And these are available to you. These sources are available to you through the link that I also put on to the apply slide. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing I wanted to do, I was thinking I would show you the steps and kind of model some drafting for you, but instead I decided to flip it and I'm going to show you a draft that a student actually wrote for me, I believe 2 years ago. This is from a student, yes, 2 years ago that I had that did an awesome job. And we worked really hard together on making a few little adjustments. But for the most part, she did this all on her own based off of the lessons here in class. So she was a beautiful writer. So I'm glad that I can share her writing. So her story goes with the prompt. She said that she was given the exact same things as you guys, given the diving safety tips and given the Caribbean Sea nonfiction source here. But then she wrote this draft. So again, I'm going to link actually this it's called an exemplar student draft. And I'm going to link it so that you guys can see a copy of it. Again, you're not writing her story or copying her story, but my hope is that looking at what you should have done when you're done will give you an idea of what I'm expecting from you. Because some of the things that I'm getting are about 5 sentences long in the past with drafts, or about a half a page. And you are in fourth grade. I should be getting stories that are well thought out and have a straight, good beginning, middle, and end, and details and dialogue and all of that we've been working on over the last several weeks. So here's her story. It says, it was a warm, sunny morning, and Mara was ready for an adventure. Her family had just arrived at the Jamaican resort called Bananas late last night. I thought that was hilarious. It was so neat to wake up to a beachfront scene out her window. Sis, wake up, she says as she walks into the bathroom to change into her swimsuit. Ugh, I don't want to wait. I do not like waking up, her sister Ada says as she pulls the covers back over her head. I want to stop and point out this dialogue. See how it went down to the next line? So when you write a new character speaking, you need to make sure that you are starting going to the next line. Mara comes out of the bathroom all suited up. How can you possibly not want to get out of bed with the scene of coconut palm trees, sandy beaches, and the sea right out our doorsteps? So the other thing I want you to notice is how awesome she did here. So this is a great spot where she showed her setting. Okay, so this is where her setting is. And again, I'm going to put here so you kind of see some of these notes. This is the dialogue. Um, so notice how the dialogue is punctuated, her setting. Mara yanks the blanket off Ada and throws her clothes at her. Ada decides Mara is not going to stop, so she gets out of bed and gets ready. The girls ran into the family room. Notice I started a new paragraph, not I, sorry. She started a new paragraph here because this is starting a new scene. So new paragraph each time the setting changes. So they're still in Jamaica, obviously, still in that resort, but they are going from being in their bedroom with the bathroom and everything into the family room. So therefore, it's starting a new scene, a new setting. So we changed it over. Okay. The girls ran into the family room where everyone else had already started breakfast. Everyone seemed to eat and finish cleaning up in record time. They knew that today was the day. It was the day they were all going to learn to scuba dive. Soon after breakfast, notice that came from the source. The scuba diving came from the source. So source details. So thus far, these are source details. Scuba diving came from that flyer. Also, all of these things where it says the sea and the coconut palm trees, those were also all part of the source. Okay. All right, so soon after breakfast, the family took the trek down to the dock, which wasn't very far since they were staying right on the beach. So notice how she explained why they were able to go down to the dock and not have to get in a car. And she explained that transition of going from eating breakfast and being in the family room to them actually being out on the dock listening to the scuba instructor. So you need to make sure you're doing that in your stories. You're not just jumping from one event to the next. Soon after breakfast, the family took the trek down to the dock, which wasn't very far since they were staying right on the beach. This is so exciting. I hope we see some spiny lobsters. Again, this came from that source because the spiny lobsters were in the source. So you want to throw some of those source vocabulary words from that first lesson in there. Mara yells, Mara, you gotta calm down. It's still too early for all that, says Ada. How can you not be on calm? Asks Mara. Oop. She needs to period there. Ada just rolled her eyes and the girls found their seats to start listening to the scuba instructor. The instructor was standing there with a chart that looked pretty easy to understand. It has 5 tips on it. Ding ding ding. There's that source again. Because if you go back here, there's that chart. It looks like a chart to me, so that's why I used that or why Mara used that. And then there's 5 tips. Okay, so 5 tips. So again, that's from the source. Working that in there. The whole family took their seats and they all listened carefully. It was time to dive. The family loaded into the boat filled with scuba diving equipment. It began to drive out to a nearby island that was uninhabited. This word cracked me up. So she used the word, this is one of those precise language things. So she had they drove out to an island. Originally, I think she had, that had no people living on it. So that actually, this word right here, apparently I can't spell language. That's interesting. This word right here, uninhabited, actually means to not have anybody living on it. It seemed that nothing lived there, so she actually kind of put it afterward. But Mara looked up and she saw a toucan flying above the tree line. Now, where did that come from? The toucan came from the source. So I just want to point that out. It intrigued her. She got her attention back to diving when she noticed everyone else getting suited up. Come help me zip up, Ada yelled. Both girls sat on the edge of the boat and counted to 3. 1, 2, 3. Mara and Ada were amazed at the scene underwater. So we can tell they went underwater. They were counting to jump off the boat. I might have wanted her to kind of add edge of the boat, counted to 3, and then they jumped in. But as a reader, I know that they jumped in and I can infer that because they go from counting to being in the water. They saw the coral reef and all its beautiful colors, some brightly colored fish, and even a spiny lobster. So, again, all of these things are details from the source that talks about the coral reef and whatnot in the nonfiction source. So, that's important to make sure you're including as well. They remember the safety talk. So, there's that safety from the source. Okay. They remembered the safety talk and how they needed to check their gauges every once in a while. There's that from the source as well. The gauges. I'm not going to keep pointing that out. I'm just going to point them out now. So they swam to the surface. Once they reached the surface, they checked each other's gauges. She has a mistype here, so she could have easily just right-clicked and clicked that, and it would have fixed it. As Mara was looking at Ada's, she noticed a toucan out of the corner of her eye again. It was now flying toward them, and the girls did not know what to do or what to think, so they both dove into the water. They got underwater and swam as far down as they could. All of a sudden, Ada started waving her arms and pointing to her mask. She was running low on oxygen. All right, so Mara did not look at her gauge correctly because of the toucan. Mara quickly swam over to Ada, and both girls swam as fast as possible to the surface. Also, all of this, once, so I would say, oh, sorry, all of this all the way to here would be our climax. It's the most exciting part of the story. Okay. The problem in this story is right here, though. Ada was waving her arms. All of a sudden, Ada was waving her arms, and this would be our problem. Okay, so our problem is normally found within the climax, but sometimes it's not. They reached the surface, and Ada threw her mask off to gasp for air, actual air. Mara swam her to the boat. The instructor swam over to help and got Ada in the boat. He talked to the girls about how that toucan had been a problem for a while, and that he never actually hurts anyone. The girls were shook up. They both just sat to catch their breath, and the family continued to dive, and Mara and Ada enjoyed the peace of knowing they were safe from the rest of the time. Okay, so what I want you to notice about the story is a couple things, obviously, but a big thing too is that sometimes stories do this. They build up for a long time, and then there's a really exciting part, and then the resolution comes. So this story is not a classic up down situation. This story builds up for a long time, has a really exciting moment, and then has its resolution happen pretty fast. So that's also something to think about because I want you to realize that stories do not just follow like a normal curve. They follow different types of curves or roller coasters for plot. So you can do that too with your story as long as you have all of these things. You have dialogue, you have setting, you have characters, you have details from the source. You are doing new paragraphs each time the setting is changing. You are using precise language. You are using make sure that you have a climax and a problem in your story, and then you have a resolution. Okay, so they have a resolution here. Actually, resolution is probably them swimming, all of that, but that's okay. These are the falling action and the resolution all kind of wrapped in here. All those loose ends are tied up. Okay, so that's something that I wanted to keep, or I want you to keep in mind. I thought showing you this example would be more impactful than you just seeing me give you steps or me draft the story. Because if I draft the story for you, then you're not going to be able to draft the story using the organizer we did together. So I do want to touch on one last thing before I end this video. Again, this right here, I'm going to link it for you on the apply slide so you have it to refer to. Again, you're not copying her story by any means, but it'll give you an idea of what I'm looking for. If you go to turn in something that is 3 sentences long, or you turn in something that has no punctuation, and you can see clearly what I expect from you right here with sentences and paragraphs and the length of this, then that is a disappointment. You need to make sure that you are actually trying and you are putting more effort into your work. So please do not just simply write something really quick just to have it done. Take your time, write a story that has all the things that I'm asking you for. So, again, the nonfiction narrative organizer lesson, you might want to rewatch it. It's posted on the Google Classroom stream, but it also is on the lesson from yesterday. So make sure that you are looking at that and you are rewatching it. And if you can't access it, please let me know. I don't know what's going on with some of the YouTube videos and why some of them are being restricted, but I can definitely get it to you if you can't get into it. But the big things today is make sure that you're drafting a story with all of the parts. Okay, so make sure your story has an exposition, right? Make sure your story has a climax, which is the most exciting part. Make sure your story has a problem. Make sure your story has a middle, like you have, your build up and details, and make sure your story has a resolution. All the problems are solved at the ending of your story. You need to make sure your story has characters. I would like you to try to stick to 3 characters in your story. Notice I just said the family a lot and just used Ada. Not me, sorry. Mara did this, a student from a couple years ago. I don't know why I keep saying me. It's not my story. So notice Mara used only Ada and Mara in the story and then the family. And that's a good idea to do that. Like lump the rest of the supporting characters together, but you don't have to. But I wouldn't do more than 3, 4 tops. You need to make sure you have a clear setting. I need to know where your character is at all times. You need to make sure you have paragraphs. Okay, you need to make sure you have complete sentences. I can't read some of your writing because your sentences are so terrible. You need to make sure you are using spell check. I mean, you guys have that opportunity being digital learners. If it's got a squiggly line under it, it's wrong. So you need to figure out how to fix that. I would make sure that you read it over with someone at home. Okay? Make sure you read it over with someone at home. All right. So those are the big things. Like I said, the story organizer lesson from yesterday, you need to probably go back and rewatch that if you need uh, to be able to draft the story. If you want to draft a story using the ideas that I've already come up with, but if you are planning on writing a story of your own using the prompt, has to be about this prompt. You are taking a vacation in the Caribbean with your family, write an adventure. That's fine. That's all well and good. But you need to make sure I have your organizer on lesson uh 2 or lesson 3. I guess day 3 technically was the second lesson because we had to evaluate, but you need to make sure that I have the organizer uploaded and I see your organizer, and then you're drafting your story today. So please make sure you're following directions, and if you need clarification, please ask. Don't just say I didn't know what to do or I didn't understand what you were saying. Make sure you ask for clarification and I'll be happy to help you out. All right. Thanks for listening all the way to the end of this, and check out the links of the the example, and it'll on the example it'll also have the prompt and sources on it as well. So that's where you'll access all of that. All right. Thanks, guys.